camera's hot. The mic is hot.
Hello.
Camera's live.
Yep. Can it not be hot?
No, I don't. I was trying to think. I was like, what do they say? I know mic is hot. Hot mic. Hot mic.
Hot mic. Lucas, you're supposed to be starting us off.
You're kicking us off.
Oh, I thought I was kicking us off with questions. Normally, y'all go into like, welcome to Transitions Podcast.
You're running this thing today.
Where clinical experience meets.
Oh no.
Welcome to Clean Breakthrough, brought to you by Greenville Transitions Recovery Center. This is episode 11.
Wow, there you go. And we're gonna kick it off with some prompts that we found that are pretty good. A fan favorite was, what's the gap between what clients learn in treatment versus what actually works in the wild? What's the gap between what clients learn in treatment versus what actually works in the wild? David, I'm going to call on you. Why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
I want to go last.
Oh,
okay.
Cole, I guess you're first.
Okay, I'm up first. Okay.
I asked the question. I can't go first.
Let's see. This is a really good question because the therapist, you're always trying to think of like what's going to help your client versus like what sounded really good in a seminar or training. And you get really excited about these theories and ideas. And you can live kind of in this therapy world, which is like very like, I don't know, psychologically focused. And you can forget that like most of life is not like that. So, man, I don't know if like without trying to like ramble on it, I would say trying to make the group interactions and the therapy interactions as normal, quote unquote, as possible is really important. Because if it gets really stale or feels like a classroom setting, I think it's good to learn stuff, but you really need people to be able to practice recovery concepts or connect it to like outside life. But I don't know what I'm talking about. That's the other thing too. Like as a therapist, I think you have to recognize at some point you just don't really know what you're talking about and just have a little bit of humility with it. You know what I mean? And like get feedback from the clients is a really important thing. Like I bet if I asked both of you, like, hey, tell me something really good that you learned in like one of your treatments, I think you would both probably have a really hard time coming up with something. But I also think if we ask you what was a really powerful moment, then you would talk about, oh, I hung out with this guy, or this therapist was really cool with me, or this relationship was really like fundamental to like me getting better or believing I could do something different. I think you would have way more stories about that. So that's not to say that knowledge isn't good. I think it helps a lot with the shame part of it. But the experience and the relationship is probably the most pivotal thing that helps people actually like get something out of treatment. That's my take on it. Does that make sense? That's pretty rambling though.
Yeah. I mean, when I think back on, my experience in treatment, the early days, and just therapeutically what I was getting, some of the most helpful things were the motivational interviewing. And then I'm blanking on the names of these, but techniques like my therapist took me outside when I was super anxious or super depressed, and he would be like, all right, walk outside. Let's name 3 things that you see. What do you smell? What are 2 things that you can feel right now?
Mindfulness.
What'd you say?
Mindfulness.
Grounding techniques.
That's the term.
It's mindfulness, definitely.
But stuff like that, like reminding me to make gratitude lists. So it wasn't as much of the educational piece that I think people think of when they think of therapy, of like, I'm about to get schooled on like psychology. I don't know.
Yeah. I think in those stories, like you're talking about like moments where people took you in a vulnerable spot and you trusted them enough to like listen to them or to actually step outside to identify 3 things you saw and 2 things you smell or whatever, your therapist is asking. Like there had to be a foundation of trust there to even give it a shot.
Yeah.
I think also too, the repetitiveness of like A question I asked one of my clients last week is he's been really into his physical health. And I asked him, I was like, so what are you doing for your physical health? And he's like, name me all these things he's doing, from lifting weights, running, martial arts classes, he's doing all this stuff. I was like, that's awesome. What are you doing for your physical or your mental health? Because he started talking about his mental health being bad. I was like, so what are you doing for your mental health? And he like just blanked out. He's like, and he had a really hard time identifying what he was like doing for his mental health. And I had to like help him a little bit, then seeing that you are doing stuff for your mental health. You don't even recognize that you're doing it, but you probably could be a little more intentional with it. So that's the accountability of it, like a gratitude list that you're talking about, David, coming alongside somebody and helping them intentionally think about their mental health and how to like practice getting it stronger or more balanced.
Mm-hmm. Lucas, did you want to go next, or you want me to?
I thought you were going last, but then you went second, so I'll go last.
Well, that wasn't my like whole thing. I was
now you get one
I
shot.
was piggybacking on Cole.
You get one shot. I talked about what was on the MSW section of my GED test. People shot it down. They act like they know more. I think that I'll go second. I think that it's like interesting because some of it's really valuable. Like one thing that I learned that I feel like does not have any real world application, but was impactful was like the neurobiology of addiction. The first time that I heard that in treatment, and I never heard that in a sober living. I never really heard that in detox. I don't even remember hearing that in IOPs that I was in, but I remember one time that I was in actual like treatment, learning about that. Nerd.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't, and it was cool because we learned it from a doctor at MUSC. So it was like a really, really highly qualified person to talk about it, who was like a doctor in neurobiology and did a really, really good presentation. And then, that helped my family a lot because that was something they invited the family to. So my dad heard that for the first time. And I think that's when he was like, oh, my son isn't just like an immoral scumbag. He's a sick person. Like they like all kind of like clicked in a way that I think that helps a lot for not just the like addict alcoholic in question, but the family around them that obviously can be really frustrated with their behavior. But then I'll say like, then when I want to get high, I don't know that like thinking about the neurobiology of addiction really helps me not want to get high or not want to get drunk. So like there is some stuff like that. And I kind of feel like that was more of the, I don't know. It's also tough because it's like an uphill battle, right? You're like in treatment. So like half the battle there is that I don't, at least for me, was that I didn't want to be there and that I'm not an addict and I'm not an alcoholic. And this is all a mistake that I ended up here, so then trying to teach me like coping skills, it's like I kind of got to accept that I even am an addict alcoholic. And I feel like not everyone, but some people are definitely still in that kind of like pre-contemplation stage, even in treatment, and just kind of wound up there maybe by like legal or family circumstances without any like real motivation to do anything or change or like acceptance of their situation. So it's just kind of hard to get into stuff that's a little further down the road, in my opinion, of like coping skills. And I want to learn coping skills so that I can not use drugs and alcohol anymore because I'm done with that. I'm tired of it. But even once you have that part of like, I'm done with it, I'm tired of it, it's still really hard. And that's where you need some of the real world skill stuff. That's all.
Can I piggyback off that?
No.
Yeah.
A few things that are interesting. I will say, like from a therapist standpoint, is you want to be very flexible in how you're teaching your clients because not everybody learns the same way. Just like when we were kids, there's like kinetic learners, there's auditory learners, there's visual learners. I think it's the same thing when you're working with clients who are at various stages of change and motivation. And also it just takes a little bit of nuance there and going with your own intuition of like what might work well to client and maybe some trial and error. But something that I do try and a lot of our therapists try as well is looking at a patient or a client and figuring out like where they're at and what they're going to respond to best and then trying different things. So for example, you may have like more top down approach, which that is what you're talking about, Lucas, like learning something like actual scientific was really helpful for you with like your initial shame for your parents' understanding of what you had going on like chemically and neurologically, was really important. And that top down is like more like cerebral. And so there are clients that really resonate well with that. They want to go through, like they want to see a list of the drugs and like how it affects the brain. What is the withdrawals like? What is the detox process like? They want to know all the facts of like what is it like going to a 12-step meeting? Like they want to like dive into all that because they're those types of learners. And then there's ones that may need more of like what you call like a bottom up. Like, and if I remember this right, I think this is more like mindfulness, like grounding type of techniques. So this is people who maybe want more like actual relaxation, like go do the grounding techniques, like go outside, find 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can smell. Like they actually need practice with just regulating, right? And think like bottom up, so it's like more like sitting there, like actually being grounded. And I may be getting these a little mixed up. But then the other big one is like sideways. And that's more, I think, experiential, like doing activities with the clients. So I think there's a lot of magic in just playing a game of Catan with them, or going and doing a martial arts class, or going on a walk and like talking and bringing some normalcy to the therapy process. And it's like alongside, and that can get through some of the defenses. So figuring out like where people have defenses up, or how they really prefer to learn, and then tailoring your teaching, your educating, and your therapy to that is super important. So when you were just bringing that up, I know you're a very cerebral guy. I know your dad is a very cerebral guy. It makes sense that would resonate years later and you still be able to remember those lessons, even if it didn't necessarily keep you from getting high. It definitely helped with the understanding and the shame aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I agree with all of that too. And both of you kind of said where the direction I was headed with it was,
Dangerous
Cole,
going last.
huh?
I said it's dangerous going last.
I know. All the good ideas get taken. Cole, you just said it though, of like coming alongside someone and actually doing the things with them. But I'd say the biggest gap is the life skills. And Lucas, you touched on that a lot too. And it's the biggest mistake I see families make who are like looking into treatment, like your traditional treatment that's like a 30, 60, or even a 90-day model where it's like they're keeping that person on lockdown within a facility, like doing lots of therapy and groups with them, but they're contained to this, some of them are on a 60-acre campus, or some of them are on like 2 buildings. And yes, you're getting all of this great education and good food and people to hold you accountable. Obviously, there aren't drugs and alcohol available on that campus, but then you were just released back into the world after that 30, 60, 90 days without like a community coming alongside you and actually doing, helping you find new coping mechanisms, helping you like find new outlets and new ways of living, and helping you build up those life skills of the simple things, the chores, making your bed in the morning, those types of things, all the way to resume building. How do I do an interview for a new job? Do I need to do a mock interview? The little things like that. That like, I personally feel like if I didn't have the support that I had at the age that I was when I got sober, that I would have immediately felt like a failure and gone right back to drugs and alcohol. But because I had people coming alongside me and like kind of holding my hand through those things, I was like, okay, I'm not alone and I can do this. Like, why not me? Why can't it be me that I'm the one that like gets my life together? Why can't it be me that I'm the one that like gets this job at UPS or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
But huge mistake that I see made is like people plan for that first 30, 60 days. They don't have a plan after. And then there's this massive gap between being on lockdown in this treatment center to, all right, go figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Cole and I were hanging out with some alumni this weekend, and one in particular that we were talking about where that just came up so much of like how much of a struggle the whole first year is. And like by 9 months, like how much you think you have it together, but then you look back like a couple years later and it's just was still such a mess. And like maybe your dating life and your work life and like how your friendships and the stuff you said, and how you're kind of just this close to like relapsing at any given point in time, if something bad happened. And I think that's where that like first year of continuing care is so important, because why would you waste time in 30 days of treatment teaching someone how to cook a meal, and like use the laundry machine? It just like wouldn't make sense. Like that only works for like long-term ongoing care. And that's why I think it's really important for people to be supported, whether that's like a long-term kind of like sober living approach, or maybe it's like IOP kind of community stuff, 12-step groups. But I think people need that ongoing support, because it's not like when you get out after 30 days, everything's fine and you're cured and better. You're going to keep running into things that you didn't even know were a problem until you go back to work and you're like, this is way harder than I thought. And you go back to that relationship or your marriage or your kids or whatever. And you're like, I thought this was going to be easy now that I'm not doing drugs and drinking, but it's like twice as hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like when you enter recovery, for some reason, there's just such a, 1 year is such a big deal. Like, and I don't know if that's like just the program that I entered or what it is, or therapy, but it's like this 1 year mark is a big deal. And for some reason I was like, okay, I'm going to have it all figured out. And when I get to 1 year, like my problems are going to be solved. I'm going to be where I want to be. But like you just said, then you get to like 2 or 3 years and you look back and you're like, gosh,
what a mess.
Yeah, I was a
mess.
My life was a dumpster fire, but at least I was sober. So it was a lot better than it was at 1 day or no days in recovery. But yeah.
And we looked that up too, and it makes a ton of sense. When we were in the car this weekend, we re-looked up like, okay, so once you get 1 year sober, your chance of relapse is still 60%. That's why the 1 year feels like a dumpster fire, because it's like I'm just barely doing better, like not even like 50-50. Like it's still more likely that I'll relapse than I won't. And that's after a whole year of sobriety. And then I think 2 years was like 30%. And then like 3 and 4 years was 15%. And then once you get to 5, it goes all the way down to 5% chance of relapse. We were like, God, that's terrific. Like 5 years is great odds.
Dude, I'm just such a believer that like you experiencing wins in that time is what gets you there. Like the whole pride tank thing, I know I bring it up all the time, but if I weren't experiencing small wins throughout and getting to a place further and further into my recovery, that looking back or the thought of going back to drugs and alcohol, I don't know what I'm trying to get at here, but it made it that much harder to want to go back, because I'm experiencing these wins. I'm getting the next job. I'm getting, the bump in pay, or I'm getting healthier relationships. And I would almost say more importantly than that is I keep people around me in my life that can remind me of that, because I also have a really bad habit, and both of you know this all too well, of being like, oh, my life is still a dumpster fire, or I'm the guy that climbs the mountain and looks at the next mountain over and says, I wonder what the peak of that one looks like. That's probably got a better view. So I need those people to be like, bro, enjoy this mountain. Like, what are we talking about? We just got up here. So I would say just the community component was another huge piece of it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that, because it made me think like, what if you had to say like, kind of like macro, like what is like the biggest win that you can get that will help somebody get from that like 1 year sober to that 5 year sober? Like, is it like getting a job? Is it getting a girlfriend? Is it having like a good sponsor? Like, what would you, if you just had to pick one? And I know it's different for every scenario, but what would you say is like, could like be like the biggest win or the most influential?
Dude, I would love to see a pie chart broken out of like what percentage of the first 30 days and being on lockdown, like getting out of that cat on a tin roof stage, like what percent of that, or what percent did that play of your long-term recovery versus like the life skills portion versus the therapy portion?
Yeah.
To answer your question, And I'm just going to say the first thing that came to mind, and this probably has a lot to do with the age that I got sober, which was 23. So I'm a young guy, and I'm thinking, how am I ever going to find a partner? Like, how am I ever going to find love? Like, I'm probably not desirable to the other girls my age who always want to drink and go out to bars. I'm not going to bars anymore. And I do think getting in like the first romantic relationship was a huge win at 20. Like, to be able to see that that could happen sober and not be judged for it. I don't know. That was a big deal to me.
Ladies,
Yeah.
ladies will get you sober.
Ladies!
Nice.
David was
Okay.
talking to a lady.
And that was a long time into my recovery journey, but I did think that played a big part
Yeah.
of
I
knowing now that I can continue to like have this kind of success in recovery.
Yeah.
Even better success than when I was using.
I'm curious what your answer would be, Lucas, because I feel like I have a heater of an answer on this. I also posed a question, so I realize it's somewhat unfair. But Lucas, do you have an answer on this question?
I do. Confidence. Final answer. Lock it in.
Oh, confident. All right. Do you want to elaborate on what confidence is?
I just think, I mean, it's a kind of it's like not totally fair because it's not super specific like what David said, but I think that it encompasses what David said of like confident that I can have a relationship and I can show up well in that. And if it doesn't work out, I can be fine after it. Confident to like go for that job that I would have been fearful to even apply for because I was so afraid of rejection. Or what if I get it and then I lose it? Confidence, just in how like I carry myself, that it's fine if I don't do drugs and drink, and the stuff of like, what if I'm at a bar and what am I going to order at the bar? Like I have to order something that looks like a drink but isn't a drink so I can stay sober, but people don't know that I'm sober. And like getting to that point where it's like, I don't give a shit if anyone knows that I'm sober or not. Like it doesn't matter to me. It's not even a thought. It's like, I'm going to go order what I want, which is a Shirley Temple, not because it looks like a drink, but because I like Shirley Temples. Deal with it, whatever. Like, I think that level of confidence that you can get in recovery, just like about your recovery, I think like spills out and is infectious in like the other areas of your life, that I was no longer like living in this like shame and embarrassment of judgment and fear.
I can remember that being a big thought for me. Like my first time going out or going to a concert bar, it was like, what am I going to do with my hands? Because I'm an anxious guy. I talk with my hands, but also I always liked to have things in my hands when I was out and talking with friends or out at bars, concerts. So that I was like, God, what am I going to do? I'm not going to have a drink in a hand and a cigarette in another. I'm going to need to figure something else out. That's funny.
Lucas, I love the breakdown of confidence, but that is totally a cheater answer. Like that is just like you're talking about the result of. So, how does one get to that stage of confidence? If you had to pick one way to do that, or one really big win to get to that point of confidence.
One really big win.
It was that job at the tubing place on the river.
The job at Zen Tubing. No, probably wasn't that job, but no disrespect to Zen Tubing, great place. I think that one thing, I hate superlatives as it is, but one thing.
One that
you cheated on your answer. David's sitting there telling, look,
I'm getting
you cheated on your
vulnerable
answer.
here.
No, he's not. David's out here giving terrible advice. He's like, hey, fella, just get a girlfriend and you'll be okay.
That is the worst advice ever.
Yeah.
You want to get with a lady as quick and fast as possible, okay? Because once you get out of the way, that's where the true confidence comes in.
No, that came a year down the road. Let me clarify.
Yeah. But it's a good answer. Like if people can accept me. All right.
Here's my answer. There was nothing in the first year. I was just living off like fumes and hopes and prayers and whims, and just by some miracle, day after day, just didn't get high or drunk, and just stuck with it long enough for like the bigger wins to happen. And I just think in the first year there was like really nothing, dude. Yeah, like I got a job at Zen Tubing. That wasn't a huge boost of confidence. After that, I went up to a construction place and I was like, hey, I have plumbing experience, gas experience, electrical experience, construction experience. And he said, why don't you shut up? I'm going to have you push water and pick up trash for $13 an hour. Does that sound fine? So, like, that wasn't a huge boost of confidence. Maybe in the first year, I just needed more humility, than confidence.
That's kind of my cheater answer is I think the biggest win you can have early on that'll get you from that 1 year mark to that 5 year mark is to accept that your life is a dumpster fire. You know what I mean? But there's a difference in like accepting your life as a dumpster fire and just settling and not trying versus just having humility, realize like going to have missteps. There's going to be hard times. Because like once you like lean into that, then I think you can find a joy in pushing the water with the burn, or enjoying being single because you're like accepting like this is part of a human condition that we're never like where we always like want to be. And even with the people who get there aren't even happy to be there. To your point earlier, David, like you get on top of the mountain and then you just want to get to the next mountain. And so just accepting like, man, my life is always going to be a bit of a mess. There's always going to be like the next thing to work on. And that's okay. I'm not alone there. And so maybe other answering that is like having like good like friendships, like being around other people who also like want to be sober and have what you want, but are also sober. So I think that's a really big win too.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's good.
that's good.
Nah, that's good. There's just too many things that are important. And I mean, that's like the unfortunate reality, I think, of like first year of sobriety is it's like so many things that have to go right. Like so many things that have to be there. It's not just one thing. It's like many things with some like commitment along the way to just be ready for that next thing and have faith that it's coming. Have like hope for the future. Figure it out. Humility if you don't figure it out. It's like it's so much stuff like all wrapped into one. And I feel like the most successful programs, treatment centers, 12-step groups, other recovery groups, like always encompass the same kind of universal things. Like always the same. And that's because that's what works, I think.
Yeah. Cool. What was your didn't you have another prompt for us, Lucas?
I do. Prompt number 2.
Okay, hold on. Because this one runs into that one so well, can I say this one really quick?
It does run into it really well. Yeah, go ahead.
So one of my prompts was if you go back and give your day one self in recovery one brutally honest piece of advice, what would it be? And the first thing that came to mind for me, and I'm sure we would all probably agree on this, is I would go back to myself and say, dude, this is going to take way longer than you think it's going to take. And you're still not going to get, in reality, you're still not going to get where you really think you're going. Like, and there isn't a perfect roadmap for life. Things aren't ever going to go according to plan. And it just took me a long time to get there.
Can you say the question one more time?
If you could go back and give your day one self in recovery.
In recovery.
One brutally honest piece of advice, what would it be?
You ain't shit.
Yeah. You're not.
I mean, pretty much, dude. That's kind of a joke, but I kind of needed to hear. I don't know if I would have heard. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, this is assuming that if I could go back and give myself advice, that I would listen to it, which I wouldn't. Even to my future self, if my future self was like, oh, and like things are really good today and everything turns out well, you're happy, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I think a just big dose of humility. You ain't shit.
Cole, what would you go back and give your day one self as a therapist? One brutally honest piece of advice, what would it be? So day one, you just got your licensure. You're a therapist now. What's things you've learned up to today? You'd go back, get that advice.
You ain't shit. Probably for real. I mean, therapists get struggle with imposter syndrome like we all do, you know. But man, there's a difference in like having like low self confidence and like having humility. And I think that is like brutally necessary for a therapist to be humble, to realize that you're not any better than the people sitting on your couch. Like you're not, just because you have the title of a therapist or you have a license doesn't make you any better than anybody else. And you know, you're fortunate to be in a place to try to help people. So yeah, I think the same exact thing Lucas just said. I think being reminded that you're not shit because you have this master's degree or this license or whatever accolades, and your clients are teaching you just as much as you're trying to teach them. That's the other thing too. So I think I had a decent idea of that because I had been a client before I became a therapist, but I know it now.
Yeah.
You know, however many years into this now, 12, 13 years into it.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right, Lucas, take it away.
What are some of the most unrealistic expectations young men bring into recovery? What are some of the most unrealistic expectations young men bring into recovery? I'm going to steal the
Now,
easy one. I'm going to steal the easy one first, right off the rip. I'm stealing it.
wait,
I'm going first. I asked the question. I'm in
wait,
charge.
can I ask a
I am the
clarifying question?
captain.
I got a clear. I know we're not letting Lucas run another one of these. He gets too big horse britches. Okay. Are we talking about just stepping into like recovery, like you want to be sober, or are we talking about like you're in treatment, you're not really like super willing to do this, but you're having to do it for your parents? So what are we? Which one are we talking about here? Like
It
stepping
doesn't say.
into
It just
recovery?
says, what are some of the most unrealistic expectations young men bring into recovery?
I'm gonna answer that more from the standpoint. Not yet. I'm gonna let you go first. I'm gonna answer that more from a standpoint of like, you know, depending if their motivation may not be super high, but they're still like sober. You know, they're still clean and detox or sober living or rehab or whatever. Okay, Lucas, you can answer first though.
Thanks, Cole. I'll take it away. It's I think that it's like the number one thing that I see, and I felt this to a degree, and I see it all the time, is just that life's gonna be totally easy, everything's gonna fall together. Like once I get sober, just life's on easy mode. All my problems and consequences will go away. And like, yeah, will I get charged with like possession of drugs? Probably not if I'm sober. Will I get kicked out of parties for being too belligerent and intoxicated? That's probably not going to happen. But am I all of a sudden going to get better grades in school without studying? No. Is my relationship with my family all of a sudden just going to get better and go great? No. Are potential relationships going to fall into my lap? No. You know, like there's so many things of just like life is still life and it can be hard and it doesn't go my way. And being sober helps a hell of a lot, but it doesn't just take it all away. And I think that's an unrealistic, probably the number one unrealistic expectation that I see young men and probably just people in general, but I'd say young men for sure too, come into it with, that everything's going to fall together now.
Nice,
Yeah. Good stuff. Cole?
David.
Go
David,
ahead.
you go. No, you go. No, you go next, David.
No,
I'm
David,
still
go
coming
ahead.
up with my answer.
I would say mostly what I see guys first entering recovery is, they think that they can manage it. They think that they can still figure out a way. And I'm talking about the guy that's just not bought in, which most of them aren't. That come to us, they're thinking like, no, I just didn't figure out the right cocktail. I didn't figure out the right mixture of like, maybe I just need to smoke marijuana and take Xanax instead of adding alcohol into the mix. So I would say the majority of a young person entering recovery, they're still in this place of like, no, I can figure it out myself. Now say that they've bought in to recovery, like we've gotten to the other side of the fence here. Then I think the biggest misunderstanding is just how long it's going to take. I think the switch flips to like, okay, well, I will get it, but it's going to be in 30 days. So I'm only going to stay for 30 days of y'all's. I know you're a 9-month program to a year, but dude, I got this. 30, 60 days max. I'm out. I'm going back to mom and dad. So I would say those are the two biggest things I see. One is like obviously not really accepting recovery, but just tried to enter into it or was forced into it to some degree by family or friends. And then the other is like, okay, I'm accepting it to some degree.
Don't you think those are kind of wild too? That even as you were saying that, I feel like 9 times out of 10, the guys that we see that say they've got it and like I only need to do 30 days, like as more is revealed, are actually not bought in and only want to do 30 days so they can immediately get back to their scenario where they can use and drink again. Yeah. Like the story is always like, no, I got it. I made a decision. I'm done with drugs and alcohol. I appreciate it. I just don't think I need all this. And I feel like if those guys do successfully leave and like somebody makes it easy for them to do that and they get out of there, it seems like without fail, it's 2 weeks later that they're like, oh, the plan the whole time must have just been to get back to his apartment so he could immediately use and drink again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. One more time. What was the question? How was it worded?
It was worded. What are some of the most unrealistic expectations young men bring into recovery?
I'm going to say one more.
David.
I would say the other really big one is that you're going to get back to what life was before, which does not make sense because then you're not going. Before was like drugs and alcohol or whatever you were using. But I think that I certainly did. I had this image that, well, I needed to get back to what my life was before, just without drugs and alcohol, but everything else can be the same. And that's like that's big. It's huge. It's huge. That's my best impression. Huge. But and I even went over this with a guy a couple of weeks ago. He was like, man, I feel like, going to treatment. And this was very insightful. It was a 15-year-old who was telling me this. He was like, I feel like I was a glass or I think this actually happened. He like dropped a glass in his kitchen and shattered it. And he was like, looked down at it. And then he looked at his mom and he was like, that's what I feel like my life is right now. Like me trying to get sober and I can't put the pieces back together and like reform that old glass. And I was like, well, dude, maybe you're not meant to be that old glass. Maybe we've got to go find an oven, melt it all down and like create a whole new glass. It could be a different shape, different color. And that's the reality of recovery as your life is, you're never going to get back to what you were or what life was, even in the absence of drugs and alcohol. Like you're reshaping your life to be something completely different and you don't know what that is. And that's scary.
Diabolical metaphor. Very good.
Mm-hmm. My answer, I think all y'all's answers are really good. This is the hard part of going last. Or like, what else could there be? I don't have like a clear answer on this one, but I think it has something to do with fun. I think there's, from my perspective, like conversations I have with clients who are early in their sobriety, they seem to have a real misconception of what fun was. And they will tell me stories about like when they were fucked up or sick, and you hear the story and you're like, that doesn't sound like a good time at all. But they're telling it with such like a glint in their eyes because they're literally war story and they're having the same like neurochemicals flow through their brains and remembering those times like high or drunk. And so trying to help teach them through experience, like what fun could actually look like in all the different ways. But you're doing that with somebody whose brain isn't used to like creating dopamine from those types of activities can be really challenging. So I think that's a really big like misconception of like what fun is, what joy is, and trying to find that. It's a tough one.
That's a really good one too.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, that you'd never have fun again. Was certainly
Mhm.
one I came in with. That fun
Mhm.
was over.
Yeah. Yep. Also, I got a question about Dave. One of the things on David's shelf.
What you got?
What's you have a statue back there.
Yeah.
I don't know if I know the story behind that. Where did you get that? What is that? Tell me more about it.
Um,
I can't even see it. You see it?
right here.
Is the frame squished because it's the three of us? Yeah, it's David, right?
Yeah.
By
Oh,
Michelangelo.
that's E. David. Oh,
Yeah.
that David.
It
It's
is.
just a head.
Mm.
Michelangelo didn't actually do that one, Cole. It's just
Yeah.
a recreation.
This isn't actually the work.
I don't know if it's
But yeah, that's David.
So David's name is David. So when he
I'm
saw
tracking.
that,
yeah,
I'm tracking. That's cool.
yeah, my wife got me that.
she saw it. She thought it's called David. My husband's name's David. I guess I'll get it for
Like
him.
this will look
Yeah.
cool on his bookshelf. And it
I
just
like it.
I honestly just walked in one day and it was there. So
Mhm.
acceptance.
It looks cool, man. That's also a incredible statue in real life.
It
to
is.
see.
It is. Cool story.
Yeah, very. It's a lot bigger than you think it is. Like, it's
How
like
long have
20
we
feet
been
tall.
recording? Do you think? I don't see the time.
I think it was about it's 11:44. I think we've been going for at least 30 minutes, if not I think we started close to 11
Okay.
on the actual starting the podcast.
Cool. We'll wrap it up there.